So because you asked for examples of errors in the Bible, here is a list of scientific, factual, textual, and historical errors that are widely accepted and how the Bible can still be true. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So there's a lot of information in this video, and TikTok only gives us 10 minutes, so it's gonna go by quickly. You might wanna take notes, pause it, or watch it a second time, but in the words of Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. So you know it's gonna be serious when I have to sit down and look at my notes because I am reporting back to you academic consensus from religious scholars, but we actually don't have to do a lot of that right here at the beginning. We'll start with the easy one, science. And while the Bible doesn't specifically say that the earth is flat, it implies it, but it also says specifically that the earth was covered by a firmament, which is like a clear glass dome, and that there was water above it, and that gave us the ability to have air, and then there was water below it. And like, I don't have to go into the science of how there was never a clear dome, right? Cool. Okay. There's also a whole bunch of different internal inconsistencies with numbers. Like, for example, in 1 Chronicles 21:5, there's this moment where they report the number of able-bodied people for troops, and it was 1,100,000 men. Same census, same gathering that happens reported at a different book in 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 9, and different number. 800,000 able-bodied men, which is very different. Those are two different numbers. You can't find a way to put them together. It's just a contradiction. They can't both be wrong. There's also just been straight up additions to the text over time that we can track and find, and in most Bibles are now just omitted in modern translations or grayed out or put in brackets. You can actually look at the very end of the book of Mark is maybe the easiest one to find. In brackets, it shows like this was not in the original text. There's a verse that's often just omitted, Matthew chapter 17, verse 21. It's an interesting one because in the earliest manuscripts we have, it doesn't exist. It goes from what's in our normal Bibles as Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, and it skips right to 22. And then we have this text called the Sinaiticus, and it shows that you can actually see where in a different hand it was written in as like, here is this other verse that could be inserted here. And then later texts show how it got added in, just straight in as the verse of the text. And when the Bible was sort of being put into verses, we didn't have these earlier texts that are more accurate. We had later additions. And so it was in these earlier versions. It's part of the verse order, but you'll actually look in many of your modern Bibles, it's not there, and it skips from Matthew chapter 17, verse 20 to Matthew chapter 17, verse 22. And you'll also find just like scribal errors where, for example, in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 9, it says Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And then if you read the same account just in 2 Kings chapter 24, it says he was 18 years old when he became king. And it most likely has to do with the way Hebrew numbers and years are written. And it was like 8 plus 10, and the scribe in Chronicles read it wrong and added this like 10 days onto the reign. But it's clearly you can't be both 8 and 18 when you ascend to the throne. There's also a bunch of places where we have well-known, well-regarded history of the world at that time that just disagrees with the Bible. The Bible is not historically accurate. And the book of Daniel is well known to be sort of like full of these kinds of historical errors. And this is like academic consensus. That's not something that's up for debate at this point. Here's one, for example. Belshazzar's dad, it says, is Nebuchadnezzar. It's not Nebuchadnezzar. He is Nabonidus' son. And like it says that he lost the kingdom to Darius the Mede, and There was no Median kingdom. Darius is a real person, but wasn't there to conquer Belshazzar at that time. And it goes on and on and on, especially in the book of Daniel. But I also told you that you could still see the Bible as true. And that is accurate. Because actually many of the scholars that will go and explain to you how, the book of Daniel, for example, is very historically inaccurate. By the way, if you're looking for a great video on that, Dan McClellan, Bible scholar here on TikTok, his video on that is spectacular. You should watch the whole thing. But many religious scholars that will explain how the Bible is scientifically or factually or textually or historically inaccurate will also tell you that the Bible is true. The kind of truth that you're looking for in the Bible is different than the kind of truth that you are looking for in an IKEA manual. And an IKEA manual, if it tells you the wrong size screw, it's really gonna ruin everything. But in the Bible, if there is one troop count that is different than another troop count, while it is of interest and of note, it doesn't necessarily affect the spiritual side of that text and what that text is trying to communicate. And I would argue that what you're looking for is what was that text trying to communicate to its original audience? And then try to figure out, okay, if this was the truth to this ancient religious audience, what is the similar truth today? If you can connect it from then to now, that's where you find the real power. And so the truth is not in exactly how accurate it is in every detail. The truth exists in understanding it in its original context and then allowing that to speak to your modern context. That's how a Bible that is full of scientific, factual, textual, and historical errors can be true. And the other piece that's really important is that each of those texts can be taken on their own terms, with their own context, because the Bible is not univocal. It doesn't have one voice, it doesn't have one perspective on any issue. And starting there, and starting with academic study, you can find a lot of really helpful truth in the Bible.